before we wrap up. What is some advice you would give to someone who might be interested in potentially getting into bodybuilding?
Yeah. Before that, one last thing before that. So to explain to you about the difference in my prep, the first year that I prepped, like I said, I was like 12,
Right.
1300 calories. I came out of that not knowing how to reverse diet or get to a healthy stage. I went through body dysmorphia issues. I tried to stay lean. I binge ate. I tried to stay lean. I binge ate, which this is what typically happens to clients that come out of bodybuilding, which is one of the biggest reasons why I said don't compete. Because if you've never binge eaten before, it's a bad habit that you have to figure out how to break, because binge eating has nothing to do about food. It's a psychological piece. And so you try to stay as lean as you were on stage, which is not something that you want to do. You need to gain that body weight back so that your hormones and everything can be functioning properly and you're not a crazy person. But you will see many competitors come off the stage and within a couple weeks, because they cannot control that binge behavior and that whole body dysmorphia piece of I want to stay lean. They will put on 20, 30 pounds easily in a couple weeks and look like they never ever stepped on a stage and look like they'd never ever competed before. So there's that whole big thing. So coming off the stage, I had a lot of trouble with body dysmorphia. Coming out of that and being successful, I was one of those people that put on 20 pounds. It took like 3 months, but I still put on weight more rapidly than I'd like to. Versus this time, the day of my show, my protein was 160, my carbs were 375, my fat was 100. Walking off the stage, I was almost at 2,300 calories. The next day after my show, 2,100 calories, which would be a maintenance for where I was at with everything. So I walked off the stage at maintenance rather than an extreme calorie deficiency, trying to figure out how to be normal again. So it's a huge difference when you allow yourself the time to be ready and prepared for your show. So I would say that if you're going to or you want to compete, research coaches, find out how do they prep people, what are the things that they use. Do a sniff test. Just because a coach gets multiple clients to the stage, just because those clients do well, does not mean that that's a good coach. So ask questions, ask questions, ask questions, because it's important to understand. And there are books. Lane Norton has a book for prepping for competition. Cliff Wilson has a book for prepping competition. So there are resources out there now that you can read up. I mean, like Lane Norton's stuff is all over bodybuilder.com about how to prep. But I would work with a coach, because you cannot see yourself in a way that is for the stage. So it is hard to tell if you're spilled over, if you're lean enough, if you're not lean enough, because your whole perception of yourself completely changes and you're not able to see that. But hands down, I would research your coach to make sure that they have your best interest in mind. They're not asking you to do an ECA stack, or they're not asking you to put you on steroids or things like that. Ask questions, because at the end of the day, this is your health. And literally, these water sodium manipulation diuretic, some coaches use diuretics. This is exactly the reason why this year alone 3 women have died prepping for bodybuilding competitions, because of these protocols of water loading sodium, using diuretics and stuff. And
that might be something real quick to touch on before we go.
yeah.
Is what are the specific protocols that are dangerous in terms of bodybuilding contest prep that people should look out for, and maybe if they're looking for a coach and they promote this type of thing, they should avoid?
Yeah. Well, one, food restriction, what foods that you can't eat, because there's no explanation like, hey, you can't have fruit. Okay, well, if a coach understands nutrition, they understand that fruit is a carb and carbs are good for you and it helps with your training. So coaches that start restricting specific foods without even being able to explain to you why, Coaches that are using diuretics when they don't have a physician or a registered dietitian to be able to monitor that. Um,
What would be an
uh,
example of a diuretic that they use in bodybuilding?
So diuretics are typically used toward the end of prep to get on the stage to drop water weight. So women tend to hold water weight, but if they're also increasing water and they're increasing sodium and then they start pulling water, the thing that people have to understand about how the body works is you have sodium and you have potassium. And when you start manipulating these variables in your body's trying to find homeostasis. So your body's trying to find a balance between the potassium and the sodium. And by manipulating these variables plus doing the diuretics, you can result in having a cardiac heart attack from this. And this is what these people have died from, is those manipulations in your body, because your body is trying to, you're manipulating blood pressure every time you're trying to mess with sodium in your body. Water helps with flushing the sodium out of your system. So if you're decreasing water, but your sodium is increasing, yes, you're going to get more vascularity, but what is that doing to your body and the balance in the potassium and the sodium? So it is a tricky thing, and there are too many coaches that are using that kind of protocol because they don't understand how the water is in your body, whether it's under the skin or whatever.
Okay, I get what you're saying. So what you're saying is it's not really a question of a specific diuretic, because well, it might be in some
Yeah,
instances, because there are like some like certain drugs that are like diuretics, right?
yeah.
So, but it's not so much a question of the specific diuretic versus it is a question of like someone using like extreme dehydration protocols.
Yes. Yeah, because they're thinking in the realm, like you have people who are still using, like they're gonna wrap some kind of pH the stuff for hemorrhoids or whatever on their body, wrap their body in plastic, or people
Preparation H.
using these sweat things. Yeah, using these things thinking that that's going to take care of what they're trying to manipulate, which is the water. And that's not how it works, and people don't understand that's not how it works.
Gotcha.